The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. John said to Jesus, "Teacher, we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we tried to prevent him because he does not follow us." Jesus replied, "Do not prevent him. There is no one who performs a mighty deed in my name who can at the same time speak ill of me. For whoever is not against us is for us." The Gospel of the Lord. So I mentioned St. Polycarp briefly at the very beginning of Mass. And so Polycarp was a disciple of John, the Apostle John. And he was also, he lived around Smyrna, which is one of the places mentioned in the book of Revelation. And he was a bishop. And, you know, the early church was persecuted for a variety of reasons. But one of the fundamental reasons that the church was persecuted, the same reason the Jews were persecuted. You think about why is this history of anti-Semitism in the Roman Empire, if you will? Because they were different in the way they worshiped, they were different in their understanding of life, they were different in their understanding of morality, and people didn't like it. They didn't like it. They didn't like those Christians talking about the sacredness of the body. They didn't like the Christians talking about the sacredness of marriage. They didn't like the Christians talking about even the sacredness of life. And so they persecuted. So Polycarp, a courageous man. And the story goes, when they put him on the fire didn't burn him. And so he stood there in the pyre, and the fire was burning, and then they had to stab him because he didn't die from the fire, but nonetheless then he was cremated. So St. Polycarp, pray for us. All right, so Jesus does not hesitate to offer a positive judgment. Mighty deeds done in his name can be found only in one speaking well of him. Jesus possesses a deeper insight. He reads all actions with a charity of heart. His judgment is always colored by looking to find the best in each person. So John is looking at, hey, you're not with that. You can't do that. And Jesus says, let's find the positive. Let's find the positive here. There's a very beautiful line. Whoever is not against us is for us. Assume people's cooperation until they demonstrate that they're not. Assume their goodwill until they show you they don't have goodwill, is what Jesus is telling us. And I think that's a good lesson for us, because all too often, don't we assume the worst? All too often, aren't we happy to hear something negative? And so Jesus is saying, don't believe the negative. Believe the negative when you see the negative, but when you hear, strive to have that sense of cooperation. So it's a beautiful, hopeful. There are other passages where Jesus is a little more critical of people. If you're not with us, you're against us. But here he says, whoever is not against us is for us. So assuming that sense of cooperation, and we'll hear Jesus encourage us in that way today. And what does St. James speaks about? He speaks about an entire category of sin today. And what's the category of sin that he speaks about? Sins of omission. Sins of omission. I think in our spiritual lives, part of the process of growing in our spiritual life is, first of all, awakening to the reality of sin. Awakening to the reality, of the horror of sin and the price of sin and what we were created for. awakening to the sins that we commit and repenting of the sins of commission, right? And as we strive to rid our lives of sins of commission, and we should be absolutely and positively, unshaken from this fact. Not only can we must eliminate mortal sin from our life. It's not optional. So we eliminate those sins of commission. And then we recognize the reality of what? Sins of omission. And we will spend our lives striving to fulfill the fullness of the mission that God has called us to. So James says, no one who knows the right thing to do and does, or for one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, it is a sin. So, in what I have done and what I have failed to do, and we bring ourselves here today, before the mercy of God, don't we? Don't we? I try to remind myself and you all often that we didn't come here this morning to pat ourselves on the back and tell Jesus how good we are. We came here to say, Lord, have mercy, strengthen me for the battle ahead. Strengthen me for the battle ahead. And may I have a sense of cooperation with all in doing the good will of God and believe in their goodwill until it's demonstrated to me that it's not.